Okay, so you can see here we have NX 1957. This is the latest release of NX. But this functionality for the new Sketch user interface and Sketch solver was introduced in NX 1926 last September. So we're going to be looking at the Sketch relations here. And you can see this is our Sketch relations toolbar, or scene bar is what it's referred to as in the new software. But with this new user interface and new Sketch solver, the relations have changed a little bit, these types of relations. As you can see, the make coincident operation here on the end, the very first option here. If you look at the description, it does say move selected objects to become coincident, concentric, or point on curve to the last selected object. So they took basically three different types of relations and consolidated those into the make coincident functionality here. So to demonstrate this, I want to talk about one more thing before I go into demonstrating this relationship. If you look at the very last item on the toolbar all the way on the right, there's an option called Create Persistent Relations. This is going to enable the creation of persistent relations for the make commands on the scene bar. These are considered the make commands over here. So if you look there, make coincident, make collinear, make horizontal, so on and so forth. These are our make commands. And if we go back to this description, the create persistent relations is going to enable these different types of makes to maintain a persistent relationship between the objects that have been you've created these conditions between. So with that option turned on, you can see the background is shaded blue. If we turn this off, you can see our toolbar's changed a little bit here. It's removed some of the functionality, some of the options we have up here with that option disabled. Once that's disabled, it has a gray appearance, or it looks like the same background color as the rest of our options up here. When we go into trying to create some of these relations now, so let's go ahead and take a look at creating a relation between the endpoint of our curve here, our angled curve, and the top edge of our enclosed rectangle over on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and select this curve, left mouse button down on the endpoint. You can see it highlights the endpoint of that curve, and you can see that is represented with that orange sphere on the end of it. Next, I'm going to come down and pick the top edge of my rectangle. With the new Sketch solver, as soon as you pick this, you can see it's going to give me the option to either go ahead and create a dimension. I can go ahead and double click on this and activate this and input a hard dimension or a permanent dimension between those two objects. But in this case, I want to do a relationship or a relation between the endpoint and the top edge here. So I'm going to come up to my relations bar and I'm going to choose make coincident here. And you will see, of course, my create persistent relations is turned off. So I'm going to go ahead and select this option. And you can immediately see the endpoint has jumped down to now be coincident with this edge, the top edge of my rectangle. So theoretically, if this top edge or this curve on the top edge were to run out in space, the endpoint of my angled curve is now sitting on the edge here. Because this option was turned off to create persistent relations, what that is going to allow me to do now is I can go ahead and move the top edge, and you will see the point does not travel along with that top edge being moved. Because we had this option turned off over here, create persistent relations was turned off at the time that we created that relation. If we want that to be maintained, we want to go ahead and make sure the create persistent relations is turned on there. And that indication of the blue background lets us know that is enabled. Now we can go ahead and create another relation. So I'm going to pick the endpoint, pick my top edge, and then come up here and choose the make coincident operation. Now you can see that endpoint has jumped back down to the edge. So the relationship has been created there. And that is a persistent relationship between those two. So now if I grab the top edge, left mouse button down, hold your left mouse button down and drag, you can see that edge or that point, endpoint of that curve, is maintaining its direct relationship to that edge. If you do want to break that relation quickly with the new Sketch solver and user interface here, all you have to do is select your endpoint and then just shake your mouse with your mouse button held down, your left mouse button held down. That's going to break that relationship between this endpoint and that edge. So that's a quick way you can break those relations between your different objects in your sketch here.